once again, good morning, everyone. Bună dimineața, doamnelor și domnilor. This is a pleasure to be here at Experiment Farm Cottage on such a sunny day. We hope it's not going to be too sunny for today. But first step is first step, so I'm going to invite Carol Amos, the president of New Writers Group, for the acknowledgement of the country.
New Writers Group Incorporated acknowledges the Darug people, who are the traditional custodians of the land of Parramatta where we meet and where most of our online activity is generated. We pay respect to the elders past and present of the Darug Nation and extend that respect to other Aboriginal people visiting places where we gather.
Thank you very much, Carol. So, welcome everyone. This is a celebration, Romanian-Australian celebration of the 7th volume of the Romanian-Australian Anthology of Contemporary Poetry and Prose, this time entitled Street Musicians. And I will show you the first 6 ones. It will be a little bit complicated, but I'm trying. So the first one is Pounding the Pavement, volume about rhythm. The second one was On the Wallaby Track, a journey across memories, about memories, of course. The third one was Between Dusk and Dawn, and we talk about inner self. The fourth one is Argument avant la lettre, and it is about non-existence of time. The fifth one was 9,000 miles away, and it was the non-existence of geographical distance. 9,000 miles away is a distance between Romania and Australia. And the one that we presented last year was about love, and it was under the title Stay a While. Just a little bit about administration. You know that the dress rooms are here on the inner garden, yes? And also, we have a tour organized when the celebration is over. So we have 20 people who are going to be invited by 2 guides from National Trust of Australia to take part in these tours. I have a list here. Please fill in the list if you want to be a part of the tour. So we are, I was almost to say, this is a 10th Romanian-Australian event at the State Library of New South Wales, but it was not correct because unfortunately State Library of New South Wales is now under construction. So who knows, maybe we are going to be there in November, maybe next year, who knows. So, because we are doing this experiment at the Experiment Farm Cottage, we are going to invite again Carol Amos, the president of New Writers Group, to tell us something about the history of the place.
So, this is called Experimental Farm Cottage. Before European occupation, the Darug people lived here, and particularly the Barramatagal clan. James Roos was a farmer from Cornwall, England. He was convicted of breaking and entering in 1782. In 1788, with English prisons overflowing, Roos was shipped with the first fleet to Sydney Cove. At the completion of his sentence in 1789, he was granted an acre of land by Governor Phillip as an experiment to see how long it would take a man to support himself. This is the first land grant. Roos had demonstrated farming skills as a convict, and the new colony was struggling to feed itself, and Governor Phillip was in need of farming successors. Roos was granted 1.55 acres of cleared land, as well as assistance for clearing an additional 5 acres. He was also provided with 2 sows and 6 hens. He was fed and clothed from the public store for 15 months, after which time he had become successfully self-sufficient and was granted an additional 30 acres. In 1791, Roos had successfully farmed the 30-acre site, proving that a new settler could feed and shelter his family with relatively little assistance to get started. Despite his accomplishments, Roos was unimpressed with his plot as a piece of farmland, and in 1793 he sold it to Surgeon John Harris for £40. I did mean to look up what that was converted to in our day, but anyway. Experimental Farm passed from a reformed convict to a man of the colonial establishment. In addition to his role as a surgeon, Harris was a landholder and colonial official, including magistrate, deputy judge advocate, superintendent of police and naval officer. He went on to become one of the wealthiest pastorals in the colony, owning extensive properties in New South Wales. The Indian-style bungalow was built by Surgeon John Harris. It is thought to have been built by 1835. It is one of Australia's oldest standing properties. Experimental Farm Cottage is a typical Australian colonial house and helped pioneer the use of the veranda, which became a major identifying feature of Australian architecture. The cottage is an elegant example of colonial Georgian rural architecture and demonstrates with substantial intactness the layout and functions of such buildings. The property stayed in the Harris family until 1921, when the land was subdivided and the suburb of Harris Park was created. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carol. This is how I explain my dress, of course, about the Indian style. Thank you. Right, so as we all probably know already, we publish in our anthologies Romanian writers from all over the world, and of course Australian writers. So I am going to invite now Sue Chamon to read a review written by our friend Dr. Cristina Sabin regarding our anthology on the Romanian side.
Hello everyone. I'd like to begin by letting you all know that Cristina Sabin was awarded the title of Doctor of Philosophy on the 15th of February 2023. Great. Here we are again welcoming Volume 7 of the Romanian and Australian Anthology, aptly titled Street Musicians. Even before opening the book, the gentle image of the young violin player on the cover took me back to Bondi Beach in 2016, when someone who has since become a close friend of ours invited my husband and I to the streets of Bondi busking event. Our friend Joe, a talented elocution teacher and communication expert, is also a gifted musician and performed in the event alongside many talented and passionate artists. From the spirited guitar to the haunting didgeridoo to the romantic violin to uplifting choirs, the busking event was an opportunity for deeper reflection on how people's souls, be they artists or listeners, come together to create a meeting place for music, stories and languages. And speaking of languages, Joe's mother spoke to us in Romanian. She had left Romania many decades ago to escape the war, but kept her heritage alive and brought together two cultures simply by having a conversation. Street Musicians is a busking adventure. The anthology itself becomes a street that comes alive in Romanian and English through references to places and people. We are invited to walk through the peaceful Nola Park in Parramatta to enjoy the colourful Skibbereen in Ireland, to reflect on the meaning of homeland in Athens, and to pause for a moment, maybe as deep as eternity itself, in front of the Omeniscus linden tree in the Copo Gardens in Iași, Romania. I hope I said that right.
Yes, perfect.
We become one With the pianist who can no longer play, we strive to understand the music of what happens, and we listen to the blues of Billie Holiday and the saxophone tears of Charlie Parker. And so the 40 writers featured in the anthology become buskers, musicians of the soul connecting past and present, creating a universe for memories. I would venture to guess that it takes a similarly extraordinary effort to organise an event like the one in Bondi, Sydney, where artists and their audience experience various dimensions of freedom, as it does to create an anthology, a literary gem where poets and novelists are basking in the music of words and languages. Through their voices, street musicians becomes an enduring ode to all the buskers out there. They make us dance or think of dancing free in the streets, we know, or perhaps just passing through. They make us dream and remember the same sound from different songs, from a different time, or from a never-ending time. So, in what language should we applaud them, standing as they are, busking for us? Christina Sevin, Australia, 15 January 2023.
Thank you very much, Sue, and of course, thank you very much if you are watching now, Christina Savin. Also, I would like to thank everybody on Facebook who are actually watching us now. Probably a dear friend of ours from Colorado, United States of America, and also probably Mr. Adrian Georges Sahran from United States also. Right, everybody ready? Right, so I will invite now the editor, the English editor of the anthology, Sue Crawford, and the vice president of New Writers Group Incorporated to have a short presentation about Dr. Luke Harmon.
Well, I do this quite frequently, several times a year, and I don't really run out of specifics. There's usually something new to say, but here goes. The history of Luke Harmon, a New Writers Group, he's hiding around the corner, began when the remarkably discerning author Fiona Wright awarded him first prize in Zine West 2010. And for those of you who don't know, Zine West is a long-running annual project of New Writers Group. The intimations of Luke's later engagement with Romanian and Australian collaboration was present. Fiona Wright awarded Mihaela Cristescu for her poetry on the same day. Now since then, Mihaela has created 7 Romanian Australian bilingual anthologies, prose and poetry, and Luke has published many works in high bar journals that other people have trouble getting into, and published 3 books with Giramondo, An Elegant Young Man, Intimate Antipathies, and An Ordinary Ecstasy, overturning each time some notions of what we should expect of him to do. Thank goodness he overturns those expectations every time. He has taught countless students on literature and creative writing, and among his other contributions to writers, he has been judge of Zine West for 8 years, and most relevant today, he has presented his commentary on the English word, well, he's about to present his commentary on the English works in Mihaela's Romanian, Australian anthologies, and he's done this from the first edition, Pounding the Pavement, which Mihaela held up to you just a moment ago. We quite simply would not know how to do without Luke Harmon, and we thank him for his incisive intellect and generous heart which he brings to all his literary collaborations. Now, here he is. Thank you, Luke.
Hello everybody. Thank you, Sue. You're always overly generous. You'd be completely fine without me. Thank you to Mihaela. It's a great honour to be asked to do this, and especially considering that I don't speak Romanian, so I can only read half the anthology. I try to do my due diligence here and respond to that honour by making a comment on every single English contribution to the anthology. I'm going to do that today, but I understand it's quite warm, and I won't take it personally if you choose to expire, at least in terms of your attention during the next 10 minutes. So, street musicians. All right, everybody, I think, would know at least some variation of Walter Pater's aphorism that all art aspires to the condition of music. If that's true, then all artists might aspire, as I do, to the condition of a musician. And as you've heard already today, a street musician is sometimes called a busker. That's a word whose etymological cognate comes from the Spanish to mean seeker. Okay, so a busker is a kind of seeker. The busker is also a performer, a clown at times. Sometimes they're just a beggar in disguise. And I can think of no more apt description of the writing life than seeking beggary. In Renata Adler's Speedboat, the classic text, she describes writers as those beings that wander itinerant the open streets, hovering over the refuse of ordinary life, seeking to sustain themselves by attending to what others have discarded in the everyday. Well, in that case, the first Australian English seeker in street musicians, Geneva Valak, begins this half of the linguistic ensemble with a swan song. There's a scene where an adolescent digits dance on ivory scales to the rhythm of knuckle-cracking rulers, weaving lullaby warmth along the icy crack of unforgiving keys, and the rack of song flowing out into the world like emerald river spooling around an open sewer tract. Our next beggar, Peter Cartwright, he sits in the evening heat of a grey and groaning land, a troubadour singing the mudblood admixture of wild soul and green seas in distant lands, his voice a southern chieftain's stock, with flourishes of fey fairy folk and a fiery transfusion of Danny Boy whimsy, all consonant beneath the moon that rises over Skibbereen, Cork and Bantry Bay. These Irish rebels' ransom of my favourite song from Dylan's Time Out of Mind, kidnapped to a wild lands by a restless poet's heart. Myra Kosh plays a piano for sale, where a virtuoso's swollen fingers are a banishment to the land of song. She's exiled to endure a crowd of shopping centre amateurs for eternity. His clumsy rolling and tumbling down an upright's keys ring discordant in ears too finely tuned for vulgar agitation. Lost, Lana, losing touch, grips the consolation of the past with one arthritic claw and with the other hand lets go. Seekers of a different feather gather in S.E. Crawford's Local Players, where the top billing is a jurisdiction of the garden variety Olympian divers come hit squad gangsters, whose polyphonic calls encompass variation vast and complex as the land itself, with pipe, piccolo, the northern morning and a two-note flute to sunsets far-flung as Pittsburgh, where the song sparrow's music is first among the spectre long-remembered dawns. Our next seeker is Daniel Vieira, who swears a symphony is everywhere the will to listen lingers. An unlucky Jack, under the shadow of storm clouds set on his misfortune, marches misanthropic on the crack, is baptized in his own blood. And in doing so, he summons up a fulsome phantom, prophesying change on a tree limb beating to the wind and rain, an oracular orchestra of ordinariness leading to the flickering light of doorway egress from all Jack's gathering darkness. And Carol Amos knows that in an age before Australian idols and Got Talents and X Factors, to be discovered can be a bustle in the hedgegrove. Through certain curtains of a lounge room audition, a baffled Mrs. Salverston observes the folk stage of a footpath, a trembling tenderness of floating notes and tingling nerves, reverberating sweetly on the charms of innocence and air. In the opening epigraph of Street Musicians, Dr. Oliver Sacks recommends music's unique power to pierce the heart directly, and nowhere is this puncturing more marked than in the iterated tower of love and influence Augusta Supple has assembled in her played list. That broken record of the heart still sings sweetly the linear notes of reluctant angel millionaires, Polish puppeteers, lingerie'd rocket men, and inky blue-eyed bruises. A woodwind orchestra blows through the empty streets of Robin Young's Universal Orchestra, the overtures of a symphony, alliterated instruments whose breadth and breath bellow over continents in a melody that brings the beat back to broken hearts and returns the trumpets to 100 million lonesome lips, whose swanning songs blow open the portals of the soul to starry promise in the singing street. Slipping through some faraway magic of moment are Robert Dunn's echoes. It's a scene stirred from dreams by a tambourine man, a dance between fate and confusion where the moves are commands, hands up and freeze, and they are answered by the ellipses that lead into temples of electronica, where the high priest of synced hips and arm faders gives sermons in the name of bass that leave the dancers wet and spent. There are echoes too in the Ginsberg howl of Neil Collis' saxophone cry, where the doomsday ghost of Charlie Parker dancing hallucinations and blowing blue-eyed soul variations with the smoky underground visions of immortal melodies along the endless stream of time, the undertow of yesterdays, the lost highways of a cappella adagios calling in the key of Billie Holiday. And Anna Radovich sits at bone-tired mother strolling through the dystopian mise-en-scene of a depopulated mall, every inch of her baby daughter resonating with the newborn's wails, until she comes upon a busker strumming his street lullaby in the soft silence of abandoned sprawl, summoning a change in the weather on 6 strings with sudden sense of gratitude that lulls the flush of pink-cheeked children into sleep, baptized by rain. Christopher Summit Seeker is a pilgrim punk on a path to the idols of bad camping ground, searching for ancestral biscuit biters dug deep into the piggeries of Grong Grong land, a place cursed with ancient bad juju on a quixotic teenage quest destined to disaster by an oracular elder who blinds his eyes with "Hey, hey, it's Saturday" and speaks Billy Idol prophecies over his shoulder. C.A. Broad announces, "Whoever's counting has to be loud." Through a woman in white at which you stare, perplexed. 3 tap dancers in Parramatta Mall echoing over the passing parade, summoning a troop of middle ages to flap the flab of arms and wriggle their overweights to an unheard tune. And there you stand, transfixed by the spectacle of matter in motion, asking questions only impromptu avalanche of orchestra chaos can hope to answer. Along the boulevard of broken dreams, Ilona Kruger sees no need to run. Under a cover of shadows, amidst the pop and fizz of gossipy chit-chat in the air like static, the sickly effervescence of a party slicked with soda pop and paper masks, the pressure of young suitors with offered hands, the brain belt of banging songs and choking smoke, all points to a singular alchemy of escape, the elixir of solitude on the street outside and far away, where the alliance of pattering rain and caressing breeze plays in heroine's air. And Bill Collis is searching for a certain troubadour, the Midwest Hobu Hebrew, born-again brimstone preacher of Nobel-prized protest gospel Americana in a song for Bob, where the changing times have ceased their chiming, and shared dreams are the fading memories of lonesome highway calls. It's not dark yet, he hesitates, but it is getting there. And then maybe he thinks, tonight I'm just another crazy refugee lighting candles in the wind for ones I've loved and skies above, singing up a one-way flight to home and back to you. And there are still chimes along the Great Western Way for Victoria Cartwright, ringing sweet and low, slick streets struck by passing tyres, and leafy notes of flowers sparking in the muffled drum of footsteps carried far and wide by the moaning music of the whirling air, purpling visions in the damp mirrors of the eye and the orchestral chambers of an open ear to the hit parade of the wide world. Norm Fairburn adopts a seeker who traded his soul for the obscenities of success, observing his better self, that kid's on my corner, a shadow of the faded past, caught through the lens of limousine behind a pair of legendary shades. If only all the world could see this hero now, as dime store Dylans and one-hit Woody Guthrie's, those nobodies who's never known the sacrifice of being Mr. Big. The royalty checks dissect the limits of the spirit, and Belinda Kirby sees a raven musician take its place inside a cawing choir, its wings slick with sable shroud for endless tears, the pit-dark echo of marble-eyed eternity, where the occult surface of those feathered things sing in the suspended heavens like tears falling into the pool of nature, like an orchestra of ravens on a graveyard fence, calling sweet in mournful rains. And here we pay respect to the late Thomas Thorpe, who seeks out legacy in Chatswood Mall, amongst a mid-morning crowd of idlers, drinkers and big-issue sellers, and spies a soldier stationed by the stationery advertising fake forms of immortality. Or is it only challenge? Is it only charity? There's no answer. You send out the saints, they come marching, the burrows of a bank clad in khaki fur and felt, trumpeting sextet, jazz and stomping sprees, and cameras snapping strangers from a spellbound crowd, scared children scatter back to their mother's skirts, and the chants bounce off the plate glass walls in a thunderdome of strum and drone. And at last, the hemispheres of this very globe are split asunder in Mihaela Cristescu's concluding song. But we can be together, that universal you and I, and know the music of the distant world, and dance upon the loom of the parted lands, all our empty gestures put to rest, the foreign affairs of our affections turned to right, the lost luggage hauled between our distance packed and put eternally to bed, with with your arms wide, the small movements of your body, the you and I, eternal, armored in the cold silver of past misfortune, united like the memories stuck into your band album for all eternity, tethered, just as soon as the moon conquers the day and nightshade stays the rising dawn for good. We have lingered in the chambered choir of the street musicians, singing their songs to us from cover to cover, and some are strange to our ear, some are foreign as antipodes. But that is to be expected. In the gay science, Nietzsche, philosopher and musician, a man known for declaring God is dead, but who also said that God is a musician, wrote the following: "One must learn to love what is strange to us. That is what happens in music. First, one has to hear a figure and a melody. Then it requires some exertion and goodwill to tolerate its strangeness, to be patient and kind-hearted about its oddity. Finally, there comes a moment when we sense that we should miss it if it were missing. It compels and enchants us until we have become its humble and enraptured lovers who desire nothing better from the world than it and only it. But that is what happens to us not only in music. That is how we have loved and learned to love all things. Even those who love themselves have learned it in this way. But there is no other way. Love, too, has to be learned. Let us go then, following the seeking songsters, our musicians of the street, and let us learn from their melodies what there is to love. Thank you. All right. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So the first round of readings from our writers published in Anthology, and the round will be obviously with Sue Crawford, the English editor of the Anthology.
Hi, I have in the past tried to train everybody to introduce each other one after the other, but I always forget. It's a momentous thing to get up and read your own work for some people, but we know that Anna Radovich is up to the job for starting us off, please, and she's going to read Street Lullaby, and for anyone who likes to read on, if you've got a copy of the volume, it's on page 122.
Hi, this is an extract from Street Lullaby, a short story. Ailsa's daughter Millie was born on the 15th Thursday of lockdown, when COVID-19 numbers were still climbing despite the harsh restrictions. Michael was allowed into the birthing suite with Isla, but back on the ward there were no other visitors allowed. No adoring grandparents or aunties or uncles, no friends, no one to coo over Millie, and no one for Ailsa to tell her birth story to over and over. They'd planned for Ailsa's mother to come from Ireland, but that became impossible. To minimise the virus risk, Ailsa and Mike had taken Millie home as soon as possible. And so, within the confines of their tiny flat, their new life as a family of three began alone. At first, the isolation was okay. Ailsa didn't have to worry about making either herself or the flat presentable. She didn't have to deal with the veiled judgment of her mother-in-law. She could slop around in pyjamas with unwashed hair all day if she liked, sleep when she needed to, focus completely on getting to know her new, awesome daughter. But all too soon, it was time for Michael to go back to work. Even though that only meant going into another room and closing the door, it still meant leaving Ailsa alone with Millie all day, every day. Up to that point, things had been fine. They really had. But suddenly, they were not fine. Ailsa was not fine. She wondered why on earth they'd ever thought this was a good idea. But then, they hadn't really considered the isolation of a worldwide pandemic. as something they should be worried about. Thank you for listening.
Hi. Just one note too, that where a person has a longer story, they will be reading just a couple of minutes of it. Other people, they've got a poem which fits into the 2 minutes really easily. So next up is That Kid's on My Corner by Norm Fairman, and if you wish to look it up, it is on page 165.
In reading this, you just wonder if Ed Sheeran actually has these same thoughts when he drives past. This is called That Kid's on My Corner. The view from my limo was of my precious corner, 1,000 years before I moved up, and a royalty check replaced my soul. And that kid's on my corner. Bohemian cheek. He could pay his dues most anywhere besides a footpath engraved with my name. The view from behind my 24-hour shades and my armoured glass is a witness to the success I've gained, and a mask for the soul I've lost. I missed all my street corner brothers and the Dylans with worse diction, the Pavarottis with laryngitis, the poor victims of the blue-shirted move-alongs. If they could only see me now, or those Woody Guthries with their pawn-shop guitars, Maria Callas's with calluses. Mine stops there. There's more to it than that. No. It's about 4 verses. I didn't check. I read it.
It sounds to be in everybody's, but so where did you start? Oh, well, we found it in the last year. So houses and there's...
Another 4 verses.
Well, we owe you another 4 verses.
I wonder,
That sounds okay. That was on... Yes, yeah. We will keep going. And we will see if Lorne can find the end of his story. Okay, so we would now like to welcome Anaswara Lauren Cristescu, and she, at our request, is going to read her poem in both Romanian, and in also in both Romanian and in English. Thank you very much, Anaswara. Please come up. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. I'm reciting my poem first in English and then in Romanian language. The poem is called...
Closer to the mic.
The poem is called Homeless Man with a Parrot. On a dusty, busy street, a man with dirty, bare feet was holding this yearly spring a parrot with a broken wing. My mate, my lovely mate, the man was singing and the parrot was swinging in their lovely secret language, sharing a common painful fate which was never, never great. They could never fly so high towards the wide blue sky. And as people were passing, whispering, "Oh gosh, he stinks," the parrot was forth singing, and the man was happy swinging. Living in the world as a band, there was a homeless man and a colorful parrot, being so close, so divine, so far from human shine. I will recite the same poem in my mother language. un muzician și un papagal. În pragul unei primăveri trecătoare, pe o stradă prăfuită și aglomerată, stătea un om cu picioarele goale, lângă un papagal cu o aripă frântă. Prieten drag, prieten minunat, cânta muzicianul cu zâmbet discret, iar papagalul îi se balansa pe umăr luminat, susurând amândoi în limbajul lor secret. Împărtășind o soartă comună, care nu le-a fost deloc generoasă, ei n-au aspirat la o viață bună sau să atingă vreodată bolta cerească. Și în timp ce toți grăbiți treceau, șoptind, "Oh, Doamne, ce frumos!", papagalul bucuros cânta, se legăna lângă omul cu un suflet grațios. Trăind în lumea lor dulce și sărmană, a fost odată un muzician ce n-avea adăpost și un papagal colorat cu privire șoimană, dar erau fericiți și simțeau că aveau un rost. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Right, now we're going to ask Chris Broadrip to attend, and read an excerpt to whoever's counting has to be loud, and let us hope that Chris has all her paragraphs and sentences and all the rest of it. Thank you, Chris.
Whoever's counting has to be loud, a woman in a white dress says. You stare at her, perplexed. She's watching 3 young girls standing in the mall several metres apart. They're wearing crop tops and leggings and have their hair tied in ponytails. Shall I count, Emma? The nearest girl says. Just count the start, the woman says. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. She and the other 2 girls start tap dancing, and you realise that they're wearing special shoes. The sound seems to echo overly loudly on the paving. People walking through the mall stop to watch, so a small crowd soon forms. The tapping becomes louder and louder as the dance continues. Whoever's counting has to be loud, Emma repeats in the same monotonous tone of voice as before. Several middle-aged people in garish, multicoloured shirts get up from benches at the side of the mall. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, one of them shouts. They all start dancing, enthusiastically flinging the flabby arms around and wriggling the fat bellies, even though there's no music. The colours of their shirts soon become brighter as you watch, blurring together in a multicolour haze. You try to walk away towards the street, but somehow you can't move. You feel transfixed by the scene and can't even look away. And you can read the rest in the anthology.
Hello again. Right, Belinda Kirby is going to read her poem for us. It's a short poem, so we'll get a lot of it. A Raven Musician.
Thank you. A raven musician. Ravens sit on the graveyard fence, surrounded by endless tears, echoing their cries like street musicians on rainy days. A joyous cry, resigned to future days of dark dawns and sunless rays, but they sing brightly anyway. For now the sun doesn't come up, nor does it come down, but the band of tears still plays, and their souls still sing, as waterproof smiles dance under umbrellas, flushed by heaven's tears, coming together in concert. Nature's music continues to play. Thank you.
And to finish our first reading bracket, we have Chris Sammett, who's going to read from Bad Camping Ground.
Okay.
Bad camping ground. In 1990, I was 19 and read in Maximum Rock and Roll magazine that a band had named themselves Grong Grong after Mum's hometown. It's a Wiradjuri term for bad camping ground. Singer Michael Farkas passed through town driving from Adelaide to Sydney, and the name understandably stuck. Grong Grong's music is soaked in cigarettes, booze and hallucinogens. Psychobilly, acid pub rock that fits somewhere between the Cramps, early butthole surfers and the birthday party. Grong Grong had split up years before I read about them. My interest was piqued though when I saw they supported my favourite band, the Dead Kennedys, in Adelaide 1983. Sufficiently scarring vocalist Jello Biafra, who signed them to his record label, Alternative Tentacles. I purchased Grong Grong's album from Waterfront Records in Sydney and decided to drive from Blacktown to Grong Grong. I had no friends in the punk rock or any establishment music at all. My weekends were nightclubs at Blacktown RSL, Wentworthville Leagues and Parramatta Leagues. Surely, I assumed, there were people like me all over Australia reading about this band right now in Maximum Rock and Roll, undertaking a pilgrimage to Grong Grong. I anticipated joining an anarchist communion, squatting in a discarded house with other punks on acreage. We'd make music, read and write, and I'd quit my tedious apprenticeship. While there, I thought I'd visit my grandparents for the first time. Mum was pregnant with me when she was 18. The father gave her $350 cash and said he didn't want to see her again. Mum and Dad left and moved to Sydney, where they'd at least wait to a new, more forgiving dawn. Before departing, I confirmed my grandparents were still alive. Dad's eyes didn't leave Hey Hey at Saturday. Lawrence, he said, only the good die young. I didn't fill them in on the nuances of my trip. I was looking for a community and a new home. They shrugged this off as youthful curiosity, doomed to arise one day.
Thanks very much, Chris. And Norm is just going to give you his last couple of verses, right, which have disappeared from the book. Norm, you're on. You're on.
Page 165. Let's try again.
Yeah. There you go.
I think my wife. Okay. Safe behind my armoured glass, my contractual straitjacket, I wear the same branded shirt as Major Tom, just earthbound adrift. Yes, that kid's on my corner, the corner I could buy and sell 1,000 times, will not mean as much as when my blanket's spread out there. And the corner's a lid on it, witnesses the success I've gathered it, and the deeper soul I once possessed. You know, I reckon that kid needs a partner. My Gibson's string that's in the bolt is in the boot. It's just enough time to save my soul for the quick U-turn.
Thank you very much, Norm, and to all the other writers. Just a little bit an announcement regarding what happened with Norm. So what we are going to plan is, after the 10th volume, we are going to do a new edition from the volume number 1 to volume number 10, so everything will be fine. Great, so we are going to invite again Fernando and Martin for the second round of music. The second round of writers with microphones.
Please. You can actually come right. You can take it off if you like. You can. No, you can take it off and then put it back. You need to go right into it.
Right, okay, right into it. Okay, to start us off on our second bracket, it is Robina, and she is going to read the Universal Orchestra on page 94. And don't wobble around like I did, because right into it. The Universal Orchestra.
Close to the microphone. Yeah.
When the streets of their towns closed and audiences ordered to stay home, the musicians laid their instruments aside and asked, "Is this the day the music died?" But the woodwinds whisper, strings zing, percussion's persistence, brasses bellow, sounded as invisible lips kissed, bows glided, unseen fingers beat, and breath blew, creating melodies crossing continents and oceans. And at the sound, each musician rose from their disheartened couch, picked up their beloved, and played to a tiny camera. They joined each other frame by frame, to be as one, a universal orchestra. In their homes, the people unmasked, rose from their sunken couches, and one, then another, and another, liked and shared, until hundreds and thousands and millions threw open their windows and doors to share the experience with those with no device to listen. At the end of the performance, the musicians bowed to each other, then frame by frame disappeared from the screen and stood in stillness, holding close those they loved. Then the millions, the thousands, the hundreds returned not to their couches, but reached out to touch the starry notes floating through the streets of their towns.
I'm in trouble because it's Augusta Supple, so she's going to come up with me. Augusta Supple for her debut in this book, and she will read for you the playlist on page 83.
Thank you. This is inspired by Tower of Song, which is a Leonard Cohen song. Played list. Jonathan was the son of a preacher man, then became one, and a father. Dusty Springfield, son of a preacher man. Mark wasn't over his ex Kathy. He liked Russian literature and wounded women. His favourite actor was Slava. Jeff Buckley's Lover, You Should Have Come Over. Slava was 35-year-old unemployed Russian actor. He once mistook a KFC wet wipe in his wallet for a condom. Bucks, the Goldberg variation. Alan was a 26-year-old carpenter with abs like Jesus and a face like Eddie Vedder. 2 kids and not divorced. He hated Slava. Pearl Jam's Black. Bryce was beautiful, from the North Island and travelled Australia volunteering for the environment. Pearl Jam's Footsteps. Trevor, a tall, slow-talking Canadian scientist, an avid birdwatcher, frequently absent, always polite. Belle and Sebastian's Waiting for the Moon to Rise, Crowded House, Distant Sun, The Stars, Your Ex-Lover is Dead. Matt from the South Island of New Zealand hosted a hangy in his backyard in Croydon, had motorbikes in pieces in his kitchen and beautiful handwriting. Supergroove. Scorpio Girls. Tim, a teetotaling visual artist with a vintage car. All his girlfriends were writers. PJ Harvey's You Said Something. Nick, the well-groomed Englishman, loved artists and antiques. Sometimes he mixed them up. Bon Jovi's This My Life. Mihaela, the Polish puppeteer, lived in Granville, eccentric and unrelenting. His favourite person was his mum. Verdi's The Drinking Song from La Traviata. Chris, an angel with the kindest engineer. Drummer, reluctant millionaire with a beautiful wife and 2 clever kids. Rage Against the Machine's Killing in the Name of.
Thank you very much, Augusta. Now we will hear from Peter Cartwright, who will read Wildlands on page 37. Thank you, Peter Cartwright.
Good afternoon. Yeah. Is that good? Is that good? Very good. For the first time, I'm bringing a little bit of this Irish into a Romanian situation.
Oh, wow.
This is not an excerpt from Wildlands. It is, to use Doug Foster Wallace's words, fragments. Not necessarily the best ones, just the ones that we put together. Wildlands, which is an addendum to something else, but anyway. But my Achilles heel has been cut, secretly. My heart has been amputated, open, while I wait to go. But I'm here. It's a noisy night with the traffic and 100 households within sight celebrating their Saturday night destruction. My heart is in the wildlands, in the west of Cork, all the way to Bantry Bay. I'm going to go there when I'm good enough to go. One day I will be ready. My papa gave me a transfusion that passed on to me. The whimsy of Danny Boy with the hope of a pike under a rising moon. The glory of being a working man and singing union songs like many Irish boys. He put my heart in the wildlands with all the hopes and dreams of the place they still call the true capital, the rebel county that looks out at the teardrop of Ireland, Fastnet Rock, the last of Ireland that the refugees ever saw before leaving home forever. My mum's blood is from a southern chieftain, firm, pragmatic and determined. My mum and dad were both Irish Aussies, but Irish through and through. My heart is in the wildlands, and their eyes and chance stories confirm the truth of that. My heart is in the wildlands, and the train full of wanderers goes by and calls me to set out. I'm going to go there when I'm good enough to go. One day I will be ready. In the meantime, I'm drifting. Part of me is mulling, part of me is asleep, and a part of me is simply dying. I'll be restless here, with shuffling feet that won't travel, until my body meets my heart in the wildlands.
Thanks, Peter. We are now going to hear from a poem from Victoria Cartwright, Chimes, which is on page 161, that will be read by Norm Fairbairn. And the poem's all in one piece, which will help Norm a lot. Okay, there you go.
I double checked, it's all there. Chimes. The sweet purple trumpet letting out a low hum as echoed as tires whirl on damp streets. Green halls in leafy splendour while flowers spark a soft note here and there in floral fire. The soft pad of football sounds in my ears as a breeze springs up in welcome song. All chimes together to fill the eyes and ears of those that watch and listen.
Thanks, Norm, for reading Victoria's poem. We'd now like to welcome Mark Thorpe, who is the son of Thomas Thorpe, who was an enormous supporter of this project, of Mihaela Cristescu's remaining Australian poetry. We thank very much Mark for coming today, and please come up to the mic. Thank you, Mark.
Legacy in Chatswood Mall. In the mall's mid-morning crowd, idling shoppers, coffee drinkers, ice cream eaters, wheelchair-bound, big issue seller. And for one day only, there's a soldier, and a few well-dressed civilians bearing trays of pens and badges, all with well-rehearsed replies to, "Who is Legacy? What is this?" Then disturbing busy pigeons. From the shadow of a bank comes an unexpected sound, clad in khaki combat dress and hat's furred felt with turned-down brims, an army jazz septet strikes up. Oh, when the saints, oh, when the saints may march, but the band just stomps. Fronting the photo-snapping crowd, two small girls with trim-top knots, twin-like bright Kokeshi dolls, stand spellbound and watch and listen. The most unmilitary sound ricochets around the mall, bouncing off plate glass and tiles, and the drums increase the power of the beat. Oh, when the saints, oh, when the saints, and then the trumpeter begins to sing, "Oh, when the saints go marching in." Startling the two girls, turned and scurried back to mother.
Thank you very much, Mark.
Yeah. Thank you very much to all the contributors. The last part of our event will be the raffle. Everybody got the tickets? I'm waiting, yes. And I will prepare the gifts. 1 second. The first 3 prizes are going to be actually the door prize, even if we don't have a door here. And the first one, I will invite Robin Young to come to the mic, because it is her book. And of course, Luke Harman for checking the winner. And Carol Emmers will have the lucky hat. Okay, here you go. Okay. No, Luke is going to.
No, Luke's going to pull.
Oh, you want me to draw?
Yeah. I'm just holding the hat.
Okay. Okay, the winner is E35. Red E35. Congratulations. Hey, congratulations, you won.
You won.
I want to photo with both of them.
You've won an anthology of short stories and microfiction. So the little tiny stories are in the shape of a shot glass.
Can you look at the photographs? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Please. Yes. You need to draw, yes. One second. The second one is a volume of Hit, yes, offered by Sue Crawford.
It's still in its special cardboard cover. I love those covers. Very cool.
And the winner of this prize is, oh, it's got a name on it, Chris Broadrib. Well done.
Stay hello, yeah, it's fine, it's no problem.
Congratulations, Chris.
Yes, one second. The third door prize actually consists in 2 anthologies, the one from last year and the one from 2 years ago.
Okay, the next winner is E3. Congratulations. Hey, well done. Congratulations.
It's fine. Yeah, just stay here, stay.
Oh,
Just like a raffle ticket, yes, like a raffle. We have 5 gifts for our artist photographer for Canberra, Luminita Lenita of Romanian origin. So 5 tickets.
Okay, so the first of the 5 goes to E9. Congratulations to the owner of E9. Don't be shy, E9. Okay, we might have to move along.
E stands for extra.
Oh, okay, well. Okay, the first of 5 actually goes to E15. Oh, well done, okay. Oh, thank you very much. Congratulations.
Wherever you want, just to have a photo of it. There. Thank you.
Okay, the second of the 5 goes to E26. Oh, Anne! Congratulations, Anne. You've won a prize, E26.
Thank you very much. Yeah, just.
Okay, I think I've lost count. I think this is the third one. Goes to E31.
That's me!
Oh, congratulations, Augusta Supple.
Did I win an artwork?
You've won art.
How exciting! Thank you so much. May I? Thank you.
Just a few photos. Yes.
Oh shit! Oh shit!
Okay, the next one goes to E27. E27. Hey, well done. Thank you very much.
Yeah, just have a photo.
Okay, I think this is our final prize. The final prize goes to E8.
Yeah.
Hey, well done.
Well done. Yeah, thank you. Done? Okay, thank you. Oh, done. Thank you very much. Well, this will end our event for today. Thank you very much for coming. You can still be here for the following tour. The tour is going to start soon. So our friends who actually wrote the name on the paper, please wait here until the guides are going to come for the tour, yes? We still have some sweets and I think something to drink as a soldier, yes? Thank you very much for coming, everyone. I'm going to work the photos and the videos, and soon they are going to be on Facebook, on Code Mixing Poetry account, or maybe my account, Mihaela Cristescu. Thank you very much once again. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Wonderful. No, it's for you. I will do it. No, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you very much for coming.
Then they continued on, and they got all the different people, they wrote the script, and they came up with a program, put the script, doing this ridiculous music bullshit. Here we go. They do it.
Thank you for coming. Thank you very much for coming. If you just wait.
How are you? Good. We see each other once a year. I know. Yeah. So then, and then the river got stuffed up, and then I had to call my husband and go, wherever you are, come and get me.
Oh, I know. Us too. Like, one car's off the road.
Well, no, it's just like, yeah, we didn't have enough road.
So my husband's like trying to reset the circuit. Oh my god.
Yeah, it's one of those days. Yeah, I know. I was like, it's same. It's like, oh, really, of all the days.
Yeah.
Yeah. My book launch next week. So, yes.
Doing the tour?
Yeah, something hopefully, you know.
The hard bit.
Yeah.